Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our All Hands on Science webinar, a new recruitment initiative of the Government of Canada. My name is Sarah Tangan, the Career Mentorship Facilitator of the Edmonton Region Immigrant Employment Council, and your host for today. Co-hosting with me is Allison from CRIEC. Hi, Allison.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Allison Flock, and I'm the Mentoring Program Manager with the Calgary Region Immigrant Employment Council, CRIEC. At ERIEC and CRIEC, we often speak to the critical importance of information and access to resources for internationally educated professionals. We cultivate and leverage local resources that are available to help our clients adapt and integrate into Canadian society. Moreover, through our mentorship and networking programs, internationally trained professionals can discover and develop their own capacities towards a successful professional career in Alberta and in Canada.
A few logistic notes. You will be muted during the presentation in order to avoid any background noise. As you can see at the bottom of your Zoom window, there are two communication options, one chat box and one Q&A box. If you have any questions to the presenters, please write them in the Q&A box. They will be answered after the presentation. We will also record this webinar and will post it on our YouTube channel shortly. Feel free to subscribe. The link to subscribe will be sent out in our follow-up email.
Before we begin, I would like to take this opportunity to respectfully acknowledge that the province of Alberta is comprised of Treaty 6, Treaty 7, and Treaty 8 territory, the traditional lands of First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries.
I would like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our main sponsors who have made this event possible. The Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada is the major and principal funder of CRIEC and ERIEC's programs. Also, the Government of Alberta has also been a major funder of our programs over the years.
So you can see today's agenda at your screen. We will start with a presentation about the new recruitment initiative of the Government of Canada, All Hands on Science, which will be followed then by a question and answer period. We will wrap up at 11 a.m. for any questions we are not able to address today. In our follow-up messages, we will provide a contact email so that you can continue the conversation.
I would like at this time to introduce to you our guest speakers today. Melanie Bissonnette, Team Lead, Enterprise Staffing, Organizational Design, and Talent Acquisition Division. And Fiona Wagner, Species at Risk Biologist, Biodiversity Management, Aquatic Ecosystems, Fisheries and Oceans of Canada, Government of Canada. Melanie and Fiona, the mic is yours.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Sarah and Allison, for the lovely introduction. So we are here today, myself and my colleague Fiona, to speak to you about Fisheries and Oceans Canada, some of the work that we do at the department, as well as our national recruitment campaign, All Hands on Science. So let's just jump right in. So speaking to you today is myself, Melanie Bissonnette. I'm a team lead with the enterprise staffing team at Fisheries and Oceans Canada. I recently joined the department in November 2021, but previously to that, worked for several separate agencies as well as other government departments. The work that I do for the team is tied into recruitment, outreach, and staffing on a national level, focusing on building a diverse workforce that truly represents the population in which we serve. Now we'll pass it on to Fiona.
Good morning, everyone. So thank you, Melanie. My name is Fiona Wagner, and I'm a species at risk biologist at DFO, specifically the Biodiversity Management branch. And I've been working in this position the last 7 or 8 months, and I couldn't be happier.
So I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land for which myself and Fiona are on today is the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people, and we both reside in Ottawa, Ontario, the National Capital Region of Canada.
So Fisheries and Oceans Canada, or DFO, is the federal lead for safeguarding Canadian waters and managing Canada's fisheries, oceans, and freshwater resources. As a department, we work towards ensuring healthy and sustainable aquatic ecosystems through habitat protection and sound science. We also support economic growth in the marine and fisheries sectors and innovation in areas such as aquaculture and biotechnology, which I find to be some of the most interesting areas. My team at NHQ is divided from DFO at the aquatic ecosystem sector, and that branches out into the biodiversity management branch, where the species at risk program exists, and that's where my recovery and protection team operates from. We perform a strong coordination role in recovery publications with our DFO regions, that being Pacific, Quebec, Maritimes, Newfoundland and Labrador, Ontario and Prairies, as well as Gulf region. And in specifics, my team reviews, edits, and publishes recovery documents that outline the conservation and recovery actions for a given species at risk. These recovery documents include goals and objectives of how to work towards recovering or working towards the conservation of a species, and these are framed in reporting periods of about 5-year increments. And a big part of our role in this document review process is briefing management on recovery documents that need their stamp of approval before we publish them. So between the time of having a document reviewed and ready to send up to having it approved, there is a back and forth with management that happens, and it can be time sensitive. It could last minutes, hours, and in some rare cases, it can last days. And this is really where my team gets the feel for the operational side of our job. And our more high-profile species tend to elicit even more of a time-sensitive dialogue with management. And this happened most recently with some of our more recent high-profile species, like the resident killer whale and the St. Lawrence Estuary beluga whale. Now, part of DFO's mandate is that we ensure Canada's oceans and other aquatic ecosystems and their aquatic species are protected from negative threats and impacts. And some examples of threats include marine pollution, vessel strikes, coastal development, legal and illegal harvesting, artificial light, which can affect nesting beaches, bycatch, which is incidental capture during commercial fishing while targeting different species, as well as underwater noise, which we tend to coin as sonar acoustics. So there's a lot of threats to species that can cause their populations to be at risk, and that's where DFO and my team comes in on the policy side of things. So as a result of all of these threats I mentioned, there are currently about 140 aquatic species at risk across Canada. And since I joined my team, I've only worked on reports of special concern, threatened, and endangered species, which are shown on the infographic there at the bottom of the slide. So I hope that extinct is familiar to some of you. And if anyone is curious about the term extirpated, it means when a species is locally extinct in a region. So it's not completely extinct in the entire world, but it's completely absent and no longer existing in a particular part of the world where it used to exist. And so the positive impact that our program makes is it identifies more and more critical habitat over time for these species at risk. And in turn, this improves the protection that DFO can establish for these aquatic areas in collaboration with Parks Canada and Environment and Climate Change Canada. Then this work we do prevents against unlawful damage caused by humans and human activity, like the ones mentioned already, but also including recreational fishing, logging by a stream, marine pollution, spills from vessels, which can include both the fuel and the transported materials on those vessels, as well as construction. And as a continual effort our program in the Species at Risk program makes, we carry out long-term monitoring projects and new research regularly to perceive emerging impacts and threats to our species at risk. And all this to say, to summarize, our program's knowledge on the impacts of the environment on species distribution, priority threats, priority places, it all gives us the edge to strategically design plans for improving the species status for our species at risk. And an example of this would be taking a species from an endangered status to a threatened status, and then from threatened to special concern, and ideally special concern to not at risk in the end. So here are some of the main projects and activities that I've been involved with since I started at DFO. Each member of my team has the freedom to explore and pursue whichever areas within a program that they wish to gain experience in. And these are just some highlights of mine. And this is a big reason why I love my job, is because it lets me get involved in projects that speak to my own personal interests. Now, one of my favorite tasks lately has been a capstone project with a local university, the University of Ottawa, which I get to lead master's students in the Environmental Sustainability Program. And what I have them do is an evaluation of the critical habitat maps that we publish in our DFO recovery documents. And it's my first time taking the lead on supervising a student project and also representing DFO as a client. So it's been a really nice adventure for both the students and myself. And another piece of the pie there, I've also co-led on redesigning some of our recovery document templates as another project that all of our regions use and that we review in NHQ. So how it works is the regions use these templates, they send them our way, and we review them until they're ready and in shape for management to approve. And then we ultimately publish them as our main goal. So this takes a lot of coordination with multi-regional participation in the form of feedback, and it's been an ever-growing project. And similar to that, I've been participating in a few working groups with other DFO programs where I get to learn what other people are doing and working on in the branch. So these two items, this project and those working groups, are really great opportunities to network and to connect with other DFO teams to learn what they do and just generally see what other DFO people are doing across Canada that's different from the work I do. And ever since I graduated from Carleton University, all I wanted to do was go back to school and learn. So what I've seen is that when you're onboarded at DFO, your supervisor sets you up with a learning plan for anything you may want to pursue. So for myself, I have a list of courses on a bunch of different things, some being time management, how to write briefing notes, how to work on memory, mindfulness, and even preparation for language testing. And one thing I've noticed routinely with DFO is how flexible and well-receiving they are with requests for self-improvement, training, and really anything that encourages you to pursue your own interests. So participating as a speaker today as a panelist is a true testament to this too. And again, this is only a broad scope of the work I get to do, additional to what our team already does. And every employee, again, has the liberty of identifying what projects interest them. Thank you, Melanie. So on this slide here, there is a list of government-led hiring programs and recruitment opportunities that I applied for from the time I was a student until now. And these are just the government-based ones that I could recall. There were loads of other ones I tried for, but these were some of the most memorable ones since they proved to be the most viable in my journey. And just to kind of describe my pathway, so I first started in the federal government with the Canadian Coast Guard in 2018 after being onboarded through the FSWEP hiring program, so that being the Federal Student Work Experience Program. And I worked there initially for a summer term with the Environmental Response Program and Incident Management. And I continued working for them for 2 years while I was studying full-time at my university. And then when COVID first began, they weren't able to commit to continuing very many onboarding initiatives. So sadly, I had to say goodbye to the Canadian Coast Guard at that point. But luckily, I attended a student fair that DFO held during the previous summer before COVID hit, and I was directly onboarded at DFO. And I worked there in ecosystems management policies and practices for just over a year or more on student contracts, just like I did at the Coast Guard, until I graduated. And then following graduation, I finished off my time in ecosystems management on a final casual contract. And it was on that casual contract that I heard from a hiring manager through DFO's repository that they update annually for students and new graduates. And thankfully, my manager hired me, and I've been with the team I'm on now in biodiversity management for most of the past year since. So all of this to say, there's many ways that you can get your foot in the door, and what Melanie and I are doing here today is presenting options that can do just that. So thank you for listening to my story and my pathway.
Thank you so much, Fiona. It's so interesting to hear about all the work that you do and the impact that it has on our waters, so that's great. So I'd like to talk a little bit more now about DFO and of course the recruitment campaign All Hands on Science. So Fisheries and Oceans Canada is actually under the same roof as the Canadian Coast Guard, and in total we have 400 work locations as well as fleets throughout Canada from coast to coast to coast. Of course, as you can see on the map, a majority of our locations are on the coastline as that's where our waters are. However, with COVID having forced us all to work from home, it's also allowed hiring managers the opportunity to reevaluate the work that is being done and to provide flexible work opportunities such as hybrid work, where you could report into the office a few days a week, other time to be working from home, as well as full-time remote work. So this is something that we're now considering at DFO as well as this recruitment campaign. So our physical offices are located in Newfoundland and Labrador, the Gulf, the Maritimes region, Quebec, the National Capital Region, Ottawa, Ontario Prairies, as well as the Pacific. So All Hands on Science. All Hands on Science is actually an employment equity driven recruitment campaign. So we are really looking at building a diverse workforce that truly represents the population in which we serve. And one way that we're going to be doing this is by providing priority of assessment and appointment to those that have self-identified in the application as a visible minority, a person with a disability, Indigenous people, and women. So ideally, our target market for this campaign are soon-to-be graduate students, recent graduate students, or those that are simply looking to build a career within science in an entry or middle level position. So evidently with this, we're not necessarily looking for those that just have education in science or just have experience in science. We're really looking for those that have an interest and passion to work for a government department that has a scientific and unique mandate, such as the one at DFO. So I'll go into a little bit of information in terms of the positions, so the occupational groups in which we're looking to staff, but please keep in mind that on the application form itself, which is done through VidCruiter, there are position profiles which go into a lot more detail in terms of the duties, responsibilities. You can read testimonies from our current employees at DFO and see about the work that they do that they like. You can also read about the education requirement, linguistic profiles, as well as the salary range from as first step entry level to all the way up into a max cap to a manager. So this is all available on our VidCruiter platform, but for the meantime, I'd like to give just a small little overview of the occupational groups that we're seeking to hire. So we're looking for biologists. So biologists will conduct basic and applied research to extend knowledge of living organisms, to manage natural resources, and to develop new policy-based practices and products relating to marine biology. These roles can be done in a lab, on a field, as well as in an office setting. We're also looking for physical sciences. So those that come in to work in physical sciences will reflect on previous practices and planning in a politically inclined fashion to help management in their decision making. So just to give you an idea of the type of work that's done in physical sciences, there's a broad range in various scientific disciplines such as physical, environmental, geospatial science, geography, fisheries biology, remote sensing, meteorology, chemical, geological, as well as biological oceanography. We're also looking for science technicians. So science technicians at DFO will actively support our projects and programs relating to the conservation of fisheries and oceans by acting as a dedicated resource. A majority of these roles are done on a field, so issuing field camps, sample collections, etc. And there are opportunities as well to work in an office setting as well as in a lab setting. We are also looking for program support. So those, again, that work in program support will work on various departmental science programs that focus on our oceans, waterways, and aquatic ecosystems. So with these type of roles, you'll get the opportunity to work closely with DFO's processes, strategies, policies, and guidelines, while having the opportunity to engage internally and externally with various parties. And finally, we're looking to staff scientific analysts. So those will conducting research and analysis and evaluation of economic and sociological effects of projects and programs that tie in to DFO's unique mandate. So hopefully this piqued your interest to read more about the recruitment campaign as well as fisheries and oceans. We will share with you, if not in the chat, the link to the poster, but afterwards I'd be more than happy to share our physical poster that talks a lot more to the benefits that we offer at the Government of Canada as well as DFO. From there, there is a clickable apply now link on the poster. You're more than welcome as well to take a photo with your phone of the QR code that's on the right, which will direct you right to our recruiter application form, where you will have everything under the sun that you can read in regards to the campaign. There's also videos relating to the campaign as well as the work that we do at DFO. As I mentioned earlier, position profiles to all the various occupational groups, as well as other information tying into the All Hands on Science campaign. In terms of the process itself, the application takes about 45 minutes to complete from start to finish, and it's more so an opportunity for us to gather information about you so that at the time of referrals to hiring managers, we're pairing hiring managers that are seeking something specific with candidates that are offering exactly that and making sure there's a match. So like matchmaking, only with a job, evidently. So throughout the application, we are seeking, like, again, to collect information on you and what you're seeking. We will be screening on 2 transferable experiences, which evidently whenever you apply to this campaign, you're actually applying for opportunities in all 5 of those occupational groups. So we're opening up the floor to allow for the most opportunity possible for all of our hiring managers. Those that are screened in will be invited to complete a behavioral assessment in the upcoming weeks, which at that point you will have a week's notice as well as a week to complete the assessment and return it to us. And those that are successful in that will then begin referrals with hiring managers at that point, in which you could be paired with a hiring manager that might simply want to meet you to discuss an opportunity and then make an appointment, or you might be invited to complete further assessments if there are specific requirements needed. So a few things to keep in mind. So this poster does close on April 13th. So you have a little over a week to complete this. It is open to all Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and individuals who have a work or education visa. So we are not providing preference to one group over the other. Everybody is looked on the same slate. With this campaign, we are really looking for opportunities to remove systemic barriers where possible. We did try with innovative and creative tools and resources, as well as the platform we're using. You will see that it's not your typical GC Jobs platform. It's a completely new platform that focuses on the candidate's experience. So with all that in mind, is we're really looking for an opportunity to step away and basically throw out the window everything that we've learned in terms of staffing in the public service and trying something new. So we are completely open to feedback. You will have the opportunity at the end of the application to provide feedback in terms of the creative materials for this campaign, the VidCruiter application, as well as any other information that you are willing to provide. We are more than happy to take it, as we're always looking for ways to improve our processes. As I currently mentioned earlier, we are providing priority of assessment and appointment to those that do self-identify to belonging to one or more of the 4 employment equity groups. And we do offer accommodations every step of the way. So whether that's with the submission of your application or other measures that need to be in place, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'd be more than happy to help. I did include our generic email inbox at the bottom of the slide, which I will share in the chat as well. That is my team that monitors that inbox, and we're more than happy to answer any questions offline of this information session, as well as questions relating to the campaign, or if you do require accommodations. I would like to go into a little bit regarding other student recruitment platforms, if this is something that is of interest to you, or if you currently are a student or looking to pursue opportunities at post-secondary institutions. It's always a great way for us to communicate the other opportunities that are available. So for student opportunities, so those that are returning or will be attending post-secondary studies in the fall, we do have a federal student work experience program called FSWEP, and this is open to all students who wish to gain valuable work experience within the government. There's a wide variety of areas and disciplines in which you can apply to get work experience, as well as begin networking and making contacts. through that FSWEP program, there are specific employment equity tailored recruitment campaigns, such as the Employment Opportunity for Students with Disabilities, as well as the Indigenous Student Employment Opportunity. So again, a targeted recruitment campaign that is done under FSWEP. We also have the post-secondary co-op and internship program. So this is tailored to students who are really looking to gain some experience and benefit from a diverse and inclusive workforce, as well as getting their foot into the door, as this is usually tied into their studies. And co-op placements are required to complete studies and graduate, but this is a really great opportunity to gain some experience within the field of your interest, again, make some connections and begin to network and potentially look at other opportunities post-graduation. And finally, we have the research affiliate program. So as a little similar to co-op, but the research affiliate program is really a poster that is posted for a specific position that is tailored to work that a government department is seeking, that is tied into a specific science or research program. So this is a little bit different, but it again is a very good opportunity to complete research or studies that are tied into your education, and again, opportunities for bridging or rolling into an opportunity post-graduation. There is also the link below here for the Public Service Commission, where all of these platforms, including post-secondary recruitment, is listed, in which you can then read more and submit an application if this is of interest to you. So this concludes our information session, and I would like to open up the floor to anybody that might have any questions for myself or Fiona regarding Fisheries and Oceans, the work that we do, or the All Hands on Science recruitment campaign.
Thanks, Melanie and everyone. So I think Sarah and I will just take turns reading out some of the questions. So the first one is the application process very competitive?
Okay, so I will answer this question, Fiona. So we do have a quite big need across the department. So as it's the national campaign, we have 400 work locations across Canada, and there's quite a need across the board for hiring managers. We've also heard from hiring managers that are potentially seeking to access this pool of partially qualified candidates for other opportunities outside of the scope of those 5 occupational groups. So that being said, those that have an interest, I would encourage to apply, as there's no deadline, or excuse me, there's no expiry date to this pool. We're looking for an opportunity to really provide growth and development to the individuals that are interested to work for government as well as in science. So in terms, at this point, we've received just a little over, I'd say, 1,000 applications, but that's good because there's quite a big need across the department. We've also heard from other government departments that would wish to access the pool as well once DFO has gone in and made their initial appointments. So I would say competitive, yes, but I think overall the Government of Canada, as well as a lot of department groups, organizations, and departments in the private sector, are also seeking to hire. So I would say that, you know, applying gives you an opportunity for exposure, as well as connecting you to hiring managers that are seeking exactly what you're looking to get.
Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to tell everyone to continue trying, and they never know, right, what opportunities might arise by just taking the first step in trying and applying for these opportunities. Thank you, Melanie. Next question is, what are the education requirements? I don't need to have a marine biology degree to be a biologist.
Nope, that's a very good question. So on the Recruiter application form, you'll see on the position profiles, there's one for all 5 of those groups, and it lists the education requirement for that group, keeping in mind that you don't need a science degree to work in science. And I say science very loosely because all of the work that we do at DFO touches on science in some way, shape, or form. Even the work that I do in human resources impacts the science, because I'm here speaking to all of you today to encourage you to apply to this science-based initiative. So I would say if there's interest to work in a government department that has a scientific mandate, you will get exposure to science as well as have an impact on our oceans in some way, shape, or form. but there are certain requirements in terms of education for certain occupational groups. So the biologists, physical scientists, and scientific analysts do require a degree, while the program support and scientific technicians do not. However, do keep in mind that's something that we are looking to do that is more so on a case-by-case basis. It could be education support. So this also could be tied into, as Fiona mentioned earlier, in your learning plan. If this is of interest to a candidate and they come in and they gain some work experience and they're really interested to potentially go back to school to gain a degree to then be qualified for the education requirement for the other groups, that could be something that could be tied in and supported within DFO.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So next question, how long does it take to hear news after submitting an application?
No, very good question. So because this is a human resource-led campaign, it's actually my team that is managing and leading this recruitment initiative. So we've already begun screening applications to help with volume management, and we're anticipating, if all goes well, the poster closes on April 13th. Within a 2-week span, candidates should receive results regarding their the screening of their application. Those that do get screened in will obtain at that point a week's notice of the next assessment that's going to take place, and candidates will have a week to complete it. Again, as we receive in those assessments, we'll start to evaluate to save time. And we're anticipating this pool of partially qualified candidates to be readily available to hiring managers for referral at the end of May, early June, to give an idea in timeline. So we're anticipating this to move quite quickly.
Thank you, Melanie, for highlighting all the next steps and what the applicant should expect. The next question is from Morgan. What is the difference between this initiative and, say, the inventory program officer or coordinator opportunities for the Fisheries and Oceans Canada Pacific region? Would it be wise to apply for both inventories? Thank you.
No, that's a very good question. And my advice is always apply to any opportunities that you can, because it gives you more exposure and more opportunities to connect to hiring managers. And I could see Fiona nodding her head because that's evidently what she did in her career path. So just to clarify, we are a department of over 14,000 employees across Canada, and our department is continuously growing as the work continues to evolve and change. That being said, this campaign is a national campaign in which all of our hiring managers and all of our various sectors will have access to, while the specific initiative or campaign that I believe it was Morgan that was referring to is something that is specific to one region only. So because every region that I mentioned earlier in the presentation, they have their own HR teams that will run specific campaigns to their hiring managers' needs. While this one is more on a broader scope, and which the whole department is looking to access. So I would definitely encourage you to apply to both, because more opportunity is best.
I want to second everything that Melanie just said. There is no harm in applying for every opportunity you can. The only harm you can do is to prevent yourself from applying to as many as you can.
Very good advice, Fiona, I agree. So the next two questions are both sort of asking about the requirements for the applicant's work experience or background.
No, very good question. So again, as I mentioned in the presentation, we're looking for an opportunity to provide growth and development. So we're not expecting all candidates that are going to apply to All Hands on Science to have a science degree or to have a long list of acquired experiences in science. We're really looking for an opportunity to provide somebody the chance to grow their career within science. So the way it's looking right now is it's a little bit of both. We have certain hiring managers that have very specific science needs, while others are really just looking for somebody that is looking to build their career. They want to provide opportunity. So it's a little bit of both. In terms of the application, we're assessing 2 transferable experiences that are transferable to all 5 of those occupational groups. So there is writing documents, researching, analyzing, and or experience conducting and leading a science-based project or programs. So what that means is, as long as you have the experience of writing documents and you have one or both of the other experiences, so researching and analyzing, as well as experience with projects or programs relating to science, we're then moving on to the next phase of the assessment. Again, in the application, we're really collecting information on candidates because we're trying to do almost like a matchmaking service with managers. So depending what the manager is seeking, we want to pair them with candidates that have exactly that or are looking for that type of work. So we're not looking at doing random referrals. We're really trying to make it personalized on both ends.
Thank you, Melanie. It looks like there's already an applicant from this session. Morgan says he was midway through the application process, but he needs to step away. And now he's unsure how to get back to it. Would you mind directing him how to do it, or does he need to start all over again?
No, you don't need to start all over again. So I'm going to go back here unless it's been placed in the chat already. This email address down here is actually our team that monitors that inbox. If you can just send us an email, we'll be more than happy to release your application so that you can continue editing it. Please do not feel like you need to restart. Yeah, it's quite, we're collecting enough information, so having to restart would be unfortunate. So just send us a quick email, or if the email's already been copied in the chat, because I know Mapsin has joined us and she's on our team. So if she hasn't provided that to you to copy paste, feel free to copy it here. Just let us know that you're having issues and we'll release your application so that you can continue.
Okay, the next question. Do you have a timeline to hire the first positions from this pool of candidates?
Good question. Unfortunately, I don't have a timeline. So as I mentioned, hiring managers are really itching to get at this pool. I can't express enough how much there is a need across the whole department to have individuals to join us to work in science. So even just letting them know that end of May, early June is when referrals will start, I feel like that can't be early enough. They would take it earlier if they could. So really what we're looking to do is after the final assessment, we're really at that point going to begin referrals to hiring managers. I can't guarantee when an appointment is going to be made. That's really on their end, but we're anticipating that it's going to be sooner than later.
Thank you, Melanie. This next question is very important to the group of clients that we have and participants that we have here in this group. Mujtaba would just like to clarify, is this program only for students and recent grads? And how can immigrants maximize this opportunity?
No, very good question. So no, this is not just tailored to students and grads. It's tailored to students that will be graduating before December 31st, 2022, to alumni, as well as just individuals that are looking to grow their career within science or have an interest to work in science. So it's not tailored to one group over others. One thing that came to mind is a few weeks ago, I had someone reach out to say, I'm looking to do a career change. Is this something that I can apply, or will you only be giving opportunities to students? And my response back was, no, please apply, because again, we're looking at ways to removing systemic barriers, age being one of them. So we're not looking for just individuals that are going to be graduating. We're looking for anybody that might have an interest to work in science.
Thanks, Melanie. So I'm just going to grab one of the questions that was put in the chat here. So for new hires who will need to relocate, does DFO offer any relocation assistance?
So in the application portion, we give you the opportunity to list up to 3 work locations in which you would be interested to work. We are also doing hybrid work as well as remote work, depending on the position itself. So certain positions, and I'll use, for example, an EG science technician where you have to be on a field collecting samples, for example, that work unfortunately can't be done remotely. So it really depends on the specifics of the position and where it's located. So there are opportunities for flexible work arrangements. However, relocation is really done on a case-by-case basis, and it's done with the hiring manager. It's not done with myself. So that would be something that can be discussed if there's interest to move. However, given the flexibilities now within government, that could be something that's avoided altogether. It just really depends on the position and the duties assigned to the position and whether they can be done at a remote location.
Thank you, Melanie. There's a question. Is an experience in marine protected areas management be an asset?
I wonder if Fiona, you want to answer that. My answer would be yes, of course. So if you have a degree or education within science or have experience, definitely I encourage you to apply, because again, we're looking at providing opportunity throughout the entire department. But of course, the work that we do is scientific and as well touching on our fisheries and oceans. But I'll let Fiona touch a little bit more about that, because I feel like she would be a great person to answer this question.
Thank you, Melody. I would say that's definitely an asset area to pursue. And I feel like having a greater variety in the backgrounds of the people that DFO hires makes DFO a stronger employer and also just a stronger agency to perform to the best of its ability to protect Canadian waters. So I think that would be a very unique asset that we could probably use a lot more of. Absolutely.
Okay, so next question is, so you're speaking about needing program support. So does that mean that you're looking for program or project managers?
So a little bit of both. So program support does go into the project management, but also might touch into something like engagement officers that go out and assist on some of the projects that we do and making that liaison connection. There's also grants and contributions and other different groups and positions that tie into that program support piece. So I would say if that's of interest to you, there is a paragraph just above the screening questions that ask about your interests, your passions, and the type of role that you would like to do. And if a PM, so program support or program management, is something that is of interest, that would be a great place to indicate it. But really with the program support, it's a lot of flexibility in providing that support and that networking and that contact and that resourcing and bringing everything together for us to complete our scientific specific programs that tie into our mandate.
Wonderful. Thank you, Melanie. There's a technical question from Adeniyi. Does DFO do anything related to seismic acquisition?
That I'm not personally too informed on, but it's very likely. We definitely work on, like sonar acoustics, things that are under the water. There's a lot of studies and bathymetry that we do. I don't have a whole lot of information to add on that, but like Melody mentioned, indicating what area you are interested in and wish to specialize in that part of the application would be key. And having someone interested in that would definitely be another asset to DFO. So I think that would be really interesting.
Okay, next question is, can I apply to this recruitment campaign if I've already applied to a similar pool on the Government of Canada job website?
Yes, of course. So again, the more that you can apply and the more exposure that you can get, the better. So this campaign specifically is not posted on gcjobs.ca. It's actually a redirect from gcjobs.ca. And I'm not sure if the other campaign that you applied to was within Fisheries and Oceans Canada, but I would say certainly don't limit yourself to the opportunities that are out there, because there's so much opportunity. And even something such as this, like I mentioned earlier, we've already gotten contacted from other government departments that would like to access the pool of qualified candidates for similar positions in their department. So I would say certainly if this is of interest to you, it'll be quite different than completing an application on GC Jobs. It's a lot more candidate friendly, user friendly, a lot more flexible and inclusive. So definitely complete an application, provide some feedback if you can, but all to say, just don't limit yourself, because there are so many departments, so many various sectors and groups and managers all within the government, and the more exposure that you can get and connections that you can get, the better.
Sounds exciting. Thank you, Melanie. One participant is wondering if the positions are part-time or do you have flexible hours for current students and other applicants?
No, that's a very good question. So in terms of the part-time and full-time, so this will be more or less for indeterminate, so permanent positions, and whether the work can be done on a part-time or full-time basis, that's something that will need to be discussed with the hiring manager, which can be done if you're invited informally to a discussion or later at the time of an appointment. So basically the answer is yes, there is the opportunity, but a lot of it comes back to if the work allows for that. There's also an opportunity to double bank a position, so bringing on 2 people to do part-time work and they kind of piggyback off each other. So different ways to do it, but I can't speak for all hiring managers. It really depends on the work itself and if the work allows for that type of flexibility. But I would say yes, because that's something that we tend to hear back a lot, is the flexibility around work-life balance and being able to work part-time while doing other special projects or passion projects, etc.
Okay, is the program for individuals working within the environmental sector and looking for other opportunities?
So just wanting to clarify, within government, like within DFO government, or so even if you work within government, you're looking for other opportunities internal, I would again encourage you to apply, because it's putting you right in contact with various hiring managers across the department and various teams doing different work and opportunity. There's also opportunity to be sought out for other occupational opportunities, not within the 5 that I've mentioned earlier. So I'm not sure if that answers the question or if you're able to add in more details, but it's really open to anybody that's looking for an opportunity, one, to join DFO if that's of interest, or if working for a government department with a scientific mandate is of interest.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. I would just like to mention Martin is writing at the Q&A chat box. So I will just be pasting everything at the chat box, at the original chat box, so everyone can see. And there is a question, will you advise an applicant to include a cover letter in their application, or they should focus more on answering the application questions?
No, that's a very good question. So ideally, the entire application is what is going to be presented to the hiring manager at the time of referrals. So a cover letter is not mandatory, it's optional. A resume is mandatory. So what we are doing on the HR side is we're really looking at the application as a whole. So we're looking at that first paragraph where you're going to speak to your interests and passions, etc., the 2 screening questions, as well as the CV, to give an overall rating, and that as well as what's going to be presented to the hiring manager. So I would say definitely focus on providing as much detail, the who, when, how, where, what, using the STAR method in your experiment question, your screening questions in the application, but definitely provide as well a lot of detail in your CV, because something that might be very key for one manager might not necessarily be key for another. So my best advice is the more information and details you could provide, the better.
And Sarah, do we have any more questions in the box? I don't see any that haven't been answered.
There's one last question. I submitted my application. However, I forgot to indicate a specific position that I was interested in. Is that still okay, Melanie?
Yeah, that's still okay, because you're actually being considered for all 5, which is great. So when you're applying to this initiative, you're not applying for just biology or just scientific analysis. You're actually being looked at for all 5 of those groups. If you would like to only be considered for certain groups, definitely just send an email to that DFO talent recruitment inbox, and we can release your application so that you can make edits. But please note that there might be other opportunities outside of what you think you might be interested in that might be presented to you, and which might actually be a good fit with some of your interests. So leaving it more open to what could be presented to you, I'd say, is probably better than closing it and siloing it to certain groups.
Thank you, Melanie. I guess we have everyone covered, unless I missed something from the main chat box. Elena, you can guide us through if we've missed anything.
Hi, everyone. There was one question regarding the plastics. I don't know if you answered that one. In the chat box, there was a question about does that program cover.
I found it. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank
okay.
you, Elena. Please, what role is associated with pollution and plastic waste?
I'm not sure if Fiona would have more information on that. But again, just keep in mind that Fiona works in one sector within the department, and we have 13 sectors in which that is a very big possibility because we're all about our oceans and fisheries. But I'm not sure, Fiona, if just based on the work that you're doing and your connections, if you'd have more information.
So I think the closest linkage that I can to when I worked at the Canadian Coast Guard in 2018 to 2019, 2020, we did have some members in our division that was working on the Oceans Act, and there was like a component of that was covering plastics and similar kind of areas as what the person with the question had mentioned. So there is linkages. I'm not aware of exactly how hands-on it gets or what kinds of opportunities are existing now, because I just had a little bit of exposure to it about 2 years ago. But again, if you're interested in an area like that, please indicate that in your application. Again, we don't have, a broad scope with everyone who belongs in DFO and Coast Guard interested in every single possible area. So if we have some people interested in more niche areas like that, that's perfect. Yeah, I wish I had more to say about that, but I can just say that it is on our radar, and it is something that I think the Coast Guard, as far as I know, is a little bit more hands-on than DFO. But again, that could be old information.
And just piggybacking on what Fiona said too, because we are partnered with the Canadian Coast Guard, the Canadian Coast Guard will also be looking into this pool of partially qualified candidates for opportunities as well. So again, although it's a DFO run process, because this is our sister organization, they've already demonstrated interest to accessing the pool for opportunities and various other opportunities that have transferable skills that we're assessing throughout this recruitment initiative. So lots of opportunities for various roles across both departments.
And Sarah, there was one question about the backgrounds with sociology and education, but I believe we can just ignore that one because it's too far away from any career counselor to be able to match this hands-on science initiative. And I believe you covered it all.
And I'd also like to acknowledge Martin. Martin also answered the question about the pollution and plastic waste. And yeah, there was an information in the chat box about policy analysis, and they review the policies related to that subject. And the physical scientists would be testing on the subject lab or field similar to technicians, while program support would be leading, managing, supporting projects related to the subject. So thank you so much for that response, Martin. And I hope that today's learning event was a good investment of your time, and that the knowledge that you gained today can lead to achieve success on your career journey. We will be posting the recordings of today's webinar on our YouTube channel shortly. And in our follow-up email, we'll send you the link to subscribe and to ask direct questions to the program presenter today. Do not forget the deadline for your application is on April 13th. Good luck, everyone.
All right, and thank you to our speakers for their amazing and insightful presentations today and for the important information that they provided on such an exciting initiative. ERIEC's partners, immigrant service providers who assisted with promotion and getting the word out about this exciting event. And of course, thank you to all of you, internationally educated professionals who attended today's event. So thank you, everyone. That was a great and insightful session.
Thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity, for helping with hosting and all the work that you've done on the communication side. Thank you to everybody who took the time to join in to listen to myself and Fiona speak to this amazing opportunity. We're looking forward to seeing all the applications that are going to come in. So thank you to everybody. We really appreciate it.